Copic friends, Michelle Houghton here. We have a new video today. This is from Gerda Steiner Designs, this cute little stamp set. So we've got another moose stamp set. Yes, I know, I'm a little bit attracted to them at the moment with all of our Alaska doings. So I think this was kind of intended as originally as a Christmas set, and that there's mistletoe, Merry Kiss Moose, but I felt like it also could be definitely a Valentine's. So I'm turning it into a Valentine's. And I just wanted to say thank you to Macy for the very sweet thank you card when I purchased those stamps from her. So what I decided I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do the background first today, which I don't do very often, but I want to put, since I'm going to make this a Valentine's Day card, I thought I'd put a big heart behind these guys. So I'm going to pencil in a big heart that kind of really encompasses the two of them. Now it's going to be behind them, so you're not necessarily going to see all those pieces, but we'll definitely get the idea of it. Now, I have told people who've watched my stuff in the past, when you work with pencil, if I put Copic ink on top of pencil, two things are outcomes that you may or may not like. One, it can stain your marker nibs. I don't care about that. I don't care if my nibs get a little bit gray. It does not affect the ink flow, but they do turn a little bit gray. And if that bothers you, you can always replace a nib, or be aware of that and don't touch the lead with your marker nib. The other thing, though, that is a little more important to me is that if I go over that lead, that pencil line, with my marker, it's going to stick in that I can't erase it once it has ink on top of it. So I am using those pencil lines for a guide. So I'm going to work right up to them, but then I'm going to stop. So I kind of have an idea in mind for the little heart and the background. I'm just going to do it in dots, but I'm not going to do little tiny dots. So you've seen me do dots before, but most of the time it's little teeny tiny dots. And this time it's going to be kind of more like bigger dots. So let's zoom in just a little bit so we get those moose close up. And I'm not going to need to move the paper around because I'm not working real distinctly, but I'm going to actually press with some decent amount of oomph and fill in this heart. Now I don't need them overlapping. They can bump into each other, so I can go fairly quickly. And again, they can be different sizes. They don't all have to be the same size, but I'm just kind of working my way through the sections. And I want to make sure to get some of those spots in between the moose as well, because remember, we've got this little guy, little spot in here. You might have seen when I held the stamp set up, I did some masking to get her little nose right over the top of the bull's nose. So I stamped her first because she's closest to the viewer. That's the order you would do that in. Whatever's closest to the viewer gets stamped first. And then the things that are going to be behind her kind of get stamped in that order. So I masked over her, and I tend to use sticky notes. So that's the sticky note I used, and I just hold on to it in case I ever want to stamp this little set again and use the same technique. Now I already have a mask. I don't have to do the fussy cutting again. So I stamp her, mask over the top, and then stamp him. And then, so I've got these two little guys. I love how surprised his little face looks. And honestly, this could have been any animal set, and I probably would have kind of snatched it up. It happened to be moose again, and I feel like, okay, I just did a moose tutorial, but I've loved this image for a while. It's been out for a while, and I saw it pop up again in one of my feeds, and said, that's it. I think I need it. I know someone who would appreciate it and like it. My Valentine, so we like a good moose. In fact, he saw one this morning on the way to work, so he will appreciate a moose kiss coming his way. Now, I don't know that I set the lid down. That was RV63. I'm just using 3 RVs. They don't go together in any specific way. I just picked 3, kind of a light, a medium, and a darker in value, but they've also got quite a bit difference in their saturation levels. That part I did very purposefully. I actually want them to be a little more contrasting than kind of your standard grouping. And I'm going to do a few more of this color and the next color in close to the mooses. Now I know I can, when I come back and do the moose, some of the like fur and stuff will be quite a bit darker, so I'm not worried about overlapping like where their fur is, because typically that ends up quite a bit darker. So I'm not going to worry about those sections getting quite a bit darker, but I am going to try to be careful around his horns, because that will be a little bit lighter. So even though I want to go right up against his horns so that it looks like it's behind him, I'm going to try to be careful not to go into his horns. All right, and then coming through each of the sections, as I come out toward the edge of the heart, I do fewer dots, so it's not quite as tight together, so it appears like the heart gets lighter as it goes out to its edge. I'm not trying to give it any shape. I'm just trying to create kind of this background behind them. So it's not about making a 3-dimensional shape this time. It's just about getting some variation from dark to light. There we go. All right. And then I've got one more color. This one gets brighter, so it's a more saturated color, RV19, and darker still, ending in that 9. Remember, our value numbers are the last number on the marker. So not as many of these, and as I get out, I get fewer. It might even get smaller. That's the fun part of a technique like this, is that you can vary the size of that dot as well. And so you can do some little tiny dots as they get further out, tighter and bigger as they come in close to the moose. But when you do just kind of a mishmash like this, when you're not trying to create a pattern and when you're not trying to control the size a whole lot, it actually, as far as dots go, this technique goes faster than some of the others. So for me, I like the look of this, but I'd like it to be softer. So I have 2 options here, and I can use both of them. I definitely don't have to just do one. I can go back to my lightest, in particular in the darker areas, and dot some more. That's going to soften those dots together. It's also going to kind of fill some of that background white in a little bit further. So I'm going to do that first. So this is in the darker kind of areas up against the moose. So slowing down a little bit, but adding this next layer of ink. As much as anything, it's just smooshing. My favorite art word, I think, smooshing those dots together and softening the edges. And I could do more of just a circular kind of light wash if I wanted to, but I always feel like the dotting does a little bit closer to the effect I want, especially as I start to dot a little bit further out. I want to keep that look All right, a couple more sections. Working down underneath them. And then I'm going to finish doing something similar, but switching over to my colorless blender. All right, so then I'm going to take a colorless blender and I'm going to do some slower dots out in the lighter sections, and I can do a few of these down into the darker sections as well, especially in that mid kind of range area. Once I have this done, I've got two things to finish the background. The first of which, and notice I am going slower with my hand at this point. I have to slow this down so the colorless blender has time to really punch into some of those darker areas. I'll do a few even in these tight inner spots. Don't need many, but I really want it. You can see just barely how this affects this. It blends them together a little bit more. It does that smooshing effect, which I love. But then it also adds a whole nother level to that inner texture, which is kind of fun. This is a great way to do like a rug or carpet or a fuzzy animal. It's another way you can get that effect. All right. So 2 steps, finish off this background. 1, I'm going to go ahead and erase my heart because I didn't go over it with my marker at all. So now I can erase it, but I've got that shape there. And I could definitely like crisp up that edge if I wanted to. I could come along and really like literally dot along that. But I don't mind having that kind of soft effect. But I'm thinking I could leave it white, or I could add a color around that heart. And I'm not, I'm wondering if I would rather have it white. Now that I've got that erased like that, I'm kind of liking just that. So I think for right now, I might leave that instead of trying to color in the background. But I'll leave that as an option. But I'm kind of thinking, even if, because I could trim around that, I'm not sure yet. So now I'm going to have to debate myself. And then I am not going for realism this time on these guys. It's more just about getting them colored. So I'm going to use a set of E7s on the bowl, and that's going to be more of a cool earth tone. The E7s have almost a mauve undertone to them, which is such a weird word to say because people say it all different. Mauve, mauve. Get that wah sound in there. I am going to change up a little bit the color on his snout, so I'll leave that a little open. Top of his ears, because those are going to have the same furry color. And his body, we'll leave, I think we'll do this the same color, but we'll leave it lighter. All right, so let's focus in on those areas first, and that was E70. It's so close that, sorry, we're losing that cap a little bit. All right, so figuring out which way to do. His face is actually pretty smooth, so I'm not going to worry too much about a fur texture on the face. It's more about figuring out where to leave it lighter, and we're going to leave kind of a spot right in the center of his forehead there. Top edge of his ears. I don't want to leave too much that super light color because he definitely needs to get darker. Then we're going to kind of come down. He's a little shaggier down on his body. And we'll do a few little strokes of that E7-1 on him. Then we're going to get darker with an E7-4. Now we really want to kind of fine tune, trying to think about how to make him look like he's got that long, almost cylinder shape snout. So we're curving it back to both sides. And then his body is a cylinder too, to some extent, but we're seeing it from the front curving back. It's kind of an odd angle, so we're kind of playing with texture as much as anything versus. All right, there we go. This is a funny, not sure what my marker's doing there. All right, so I'm going to do just a touch of E7-7 right in these darkest spots. All right. All right. We're going to blend his face smooth. I'm going to jump back to E7-1. And then we'll go back to the E7-0. The best part is we really, like on this lower portion, it's barely touching a few of these areas because I really actually want to leave some of that fuzziness. So I don't need, here we go. On the face, we'll smooth that up a little bit more. There we go. And then we're gonna change colors for his snout. Got an E50. We're gonna lighten this up, and hers will be light too, so actually we could probably, let's do this. Let's get their snouts at the same time. And I realize my friend in Alaska is cringing. The moose's snouts are actually usually darker, so I do realize that. All right. We're going to give her a little shape as well. This is E31, so E50 first, E31. We're going to soften that a bit too. Now I'm going to use the same combo on his horns here in just a second, so bear with me. And she will get a little blush out on her cheeks, but we're going to stop there for a second. Going to hit his antlers, and I think I'm going to actually use this tone on his inner ears and hers as well. This is that E50, so it's kind of a light. We'll add a little flesh tone to that here in just a minute. I'm going to base the antlers. Ooh, my E50 needs refilled. I will set that to the side, I promise. This is one I actually use a ton for basing things. If it's not a color that you own, it's one worth investing in, I think. It's a good base color, and it also lightens things when you're not trying to go all the way back to white, but you're in that earth tone range, like tree bark, skin, when you're trying to lighten things up that you've gotten too dark. It works really, really well for that as well. So to me, it's one of those that is worth having in your toolbox. Okay, coming up from the inside of that scoop, or more specifically the shovel of his horns. All right, and then there we go. And we're going to come also from the underside up just a little bit on both sides, because this is curving down, and then we're seeing inside. Sorry, it looks really weird when it's all enlarged like this. But I think you guys get the idea. We're going to use one more. I'm actually thinking, I don't know if this is going to be dark enough. Yes, it is. This is an E4-3. There's more gray in the E4s than in the E5 or the E3s. If you've played around a little bit with the saturation, the E markers do not play by the normal saturation rule, but the E4s and E7s tend to have quite a bit more gray in them. They're more desaturated. So they both work, the E4s and E7s work pretty well at cooling down and deepening some of those shadow areas for us. Yeah, pretty pleased with that. So on the antlers, on the horns, it's E50, E31, E43. So that's kind of a new combo for me, but pretty pleased with that combo. Come back in and kind of feather. It shouldn't take a whole lot just because I just inked all of this, so it should be at least damp, if not totally wet. And most of the earth tones, even though they have very different kind of undertones to them, most of them actually blend pretty well together. I think the earth tone inks tend to be a little less complex, and so, or maybe they're more complex, I don't know. But the chemical formula just tends to be much more user-friendly where blending comes in, so I tend to have a pretty good chance, as long as I'm being reasonable about the value jumps of these blending pretty well together. All right, so we've got Mr. Moose taken care of. I feel like this is kind of odd. There we go. And then we're gonna finish up the little ears on all of them. We're gonna go in nice and tight, just a touch. This is E93, and then colorless blender, not too shabby. So our little girl moose, I'm more just thinking I want to change her color, not so much that she needs to be lighter or darker. So I think I'm going to go with E2s, E21 and 2.3 and 2.5. Now she might actually end up darker because that 2.5 actually is got some oomph to it. The E21, another marker I pull out of my bag a lot, obviously, as I start coloring here. And we'll come back and blend that together here a little bit on her snout in a moment. And like him, we're going to keep that fur up on her snout a little bit smoother, and we'll make her a little bit fuzzier as we come back below that, not chin, but the jaw bone. All right, E23 can kind of come up, but you can see already the jump from E21 to 23 is pretty significant. So be aware of that. Your E2s pack a punch. It's one of the color combinations that I use actually quite a bit for brunettes. Come right up under her little lashes here. A little further. There we go. And then as we come back, I'm going to do kind of some layers here. These are just short little flicks. They have kind of a teardrop shape to them. And then E25 is darker still. And we'll do fewer of these guys. And then we come up from that very bottom edge and around the jaw, and a few little flicks. All right, so we want to smooth out a little bit on the face. I'm going to be real careful because my E23 is acting up a little bit. It's gotten a little sticky, so definitely need to clean that guy out. So I've got a few that I need to give some love to in this particular grouping. And then we'll see if we can't get these to cooperate. All right. They're going. It's just going to take a little more love than the ones on the little, our bowl. And again, I like the texture on the fur, so I'm going to give it a quick kind of wash with the E21, but I'm not going to try to erase that. There we go. And then I want to add a little pink to those cheeks. Obviously, so my what I tried was R83. It's a little bit light, so it actually is bleaching out that color a little bit. So I'm going to jump up. This is going to be dark, but I think it's where I'm going to have to go to get a little bit of that color on her cheeks. So this is R85. I'm actually going to come back right on that edge There we go. This is the E2 one again. So even though it's my lightest and I'm working in that dark area, I think it's going to actually blend that a little bit better. It did. Yay. So I think, let's see, let's blend the snout back a little bit more. So E50 coming through into there. There we go. And that softens that edge as well. How cute are they? I think they're cute. I lost the inside of her little ears, so I'm going to try to add. I pushed that back a little too much. So I'm going to add those back in. There we go. There we go. And I do like them with the white, so I might trim some of the excess off, but I'm going to leave them like this and find kind of a fun Valentine paper to put them on. I might, though, add my blue violet, give her a little cast shadow where she's nuzzling in on him. Yeah, there we go. You can do more, but that gives us that layer on her. I guess if you wanted, you could put a little eyeshadow on her too, but she's a natural mousse. She likes to go all au natural. All right, everybody. So I will turn this into a card. I will attach that here momentarily. Thanks as always for stopping by. Get those Valentine's cards ready for a friend or a girlfriend, boyfriend, whoever you need to make a card for, kids, you name it. Everybody deserves a little bit of love with a partner or not. You be their partner. You send them a hug and a little love. Have a good one, everybody. Have a happy, colorful day.